Did you just finish the movie?
Me? Yeah, I just finished the movie.
Did you,
It
did
it
it
it was it contributed to my day immediately.
in a good way or
Yeah.
oh good. Okay.
Um so last night I was going to go watch this movie because I didn't know what else to watch. And I got mad because I was like, as if he doesn't know she's in love with him the whole time. Is he
Yeah.
stupid? But
Yeah.
honestly, when I started the movie today, I didn't realize they hadn't. I know we're going to get into it, but I hadn't realized they hadn't talked in so long, and maybe he had no idea actually. Like they weren't as close anymore.
I think like I agree with you like that in I felt that way too. In the beginning I can see it, but towards the end of the movie I'm like
Mhm.
when he was all shocked at that scene. Yeah, we'll get to it, but yeah, I was sitting there like, okay, dude, like you're at this point, it's like willful ignorance because he was a participant the whole
Yes,
time.
absolutely.
This
Well, whether
guy,
he knew or not.
this guy's like, yeah, we'll have to get into it. I guess we'll just have to start from the beginning here. So I guess welcome to rom-com me not. I we are starting. I think we got to start right off by saying that this movie has two of our favorite women. Like, I mean, between Lauren and I, like, I love Cameron Diaz like so much. I think that she is a wonderful, like, everything she does, I just love. Like, and then Lauren loves Julia Roberts.
So if you couldn't tell, we watched My Best Friend's Wedding.
Yeah. Yep. My best friend's wedding, which is very quirky and silly and lighthearted and just funny little movie. And Whitney, how do you feel about our two leading ladies?
Oh, well, I always loved Julia Roberts, but I have like a bad taste in my mouth about her. And I'm not sure why until after watching the movie because of how she portrays herself. Uh, I realize it's across multiple movies that she comes across as kind of a manipulative woman, to
Yeah,
put it nicely.
I mean, I agree. I agree. This whole movie, I was just like, I remember turning to you at one point, Lauren, and I was like, okay, Julia Roberts is not doing it for me right now because she's mean. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I saw her as being like mean-spirited and then like towards the end of the movie like I know you're supposed to like start liking her and stuff because she like ultimately does do like the quote unquote the right thing and I'm like yeah after causing all this chaos and confusion like
Absolutely.
yeah I didn't like her I didn't like her character. Yeah, I agree. I guess I'm just completely in agreement with you.
Yes. However, I don't think I've seen a bad Julia Roberts movie, and I love everything Cameron Diaz has done, whether it's a good movie or bad movie. I
Cameron
think
Diaz.
she's sunshine to
Is
me.
it, see, that's what I said. I actually wrote that down. I said Cameron Diaz is a ray of sunshine.
Yes, she is. And in this movie, she's so young, and yet she's great. I think she was the star of this.
100%. She's so cute. I feel like she also hits like the thing I love about Cameron Diaz is like she's such a good actress because whatever it is that she's supposed to hit, whether it's sadness or silliness or funny, like her comedic timing, like she is always like perfectly on point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and she has a way I've noticed across all of her movies of like she can be really sad and full of emotion in a comedy and be believable, but not too heartbreaking that like it puts a damper on the movie. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
she has a good way of like kind of hitting that middle like she did it in this one where she had a scene where she was really sad and she was crying and she was so good at it, but it didn't the comedy stayed alive, you know? Like
Yeah,
even through
Lauren,
that.
this is your favorite.
I realize I've been claiming favorite on a lot of them. So, but yeah, I do love this movie. I watched this movie so much when I was younger. Um, yeah, I mean, toxic relationship dynamics for everyone, but that's okay because it's just a great movie. And I'm gonna get us into it. We open with a pleasant little ditty of wishing and hoping.
I
Very nice
love
little song.
I love this intro. Can I say, like, and this is a theme that comes up throughout the movie a lot, that I kept taking note of. One thing that I really appreciate about this movie is that this movie has a lot of time for itself. And like what I mean by that is like they don't rush through any of these scenes. Like this intro, they see it all the way through. This little song with these women. It's simple. It's just a couple women dressed up in a room with like probably just like a green screen behind them or just like a whatever, like a painted wall. And they're doing this like very simple little intro, but it's like so impactful for like setting the stage of the movie. And it's like low budget, but it's like impactful and it has time for itself. It's not rushed, it's not manic. They sing it all the way through to the last lyric, and I love that, you know?
That's a good tee up because it after that song, that very pleasant song that takes its time, once that's done, we immediately go to a very hustling and bustling kitchen scene. So you get some nice contrast. And there's all these chefs running around trying to make dishes, and one of the tickets is VIP, and there's threats being made for this dish to be made perfect because Julia Roberts is a food critic and she is at this restaurant and she's about to try their special meat. And she's sitting at the table and they bring it over and three little guys are looking out the little circle window from the kitchen to see if she likes it or not. And she takes one bite and she gives her approval. And then there's relief and then it settles into itself. And we meet Julia Roberts, whose character is Julianne, and her editor, George, having a nice business dinner, nice chat. She decides to check her messages for some business excuse and immediately gets that beautiful Julia Roberts smile because her best friend and long lost love, Michael, has called with some urgency and
Mm.
says to give him a call, 4 a.m., whatever.
And here's what I would like to say about that. She says it's my best friend. I say it's your ex with really bad boundaries. These people are not best friends. Like, like Whitney, you're one of my best friends. And this relationship does not look like our relationship.
Uh, no. And I mean, we can go 6 months without talking. We have,
Yeah,
and that's okay. And that's, I feel like, what best friends can do.
yeah.
But best friends aren't like manic to call each other back.
And they're also not like they're they're also not like about to make out every time they see each other.
I was, yeah, okay, we'll get into it. But I kept thinking, like, what, why are you letting her be so close to you?
Yeah, this because this is not they're saying that it's called my best friend's wedding. They're trying to be best friends, but they are not best friends.
They are not. We leave the restaurant and she goes back to, looks like a hotel room. Is she in a hotel?
I think she's in a hotel. I always get the vibe that she and Michael are both supposed to be on the road
Mm-hmm.
doing their reviews in this pre high speed internet era of going places and trying things. Yeah, she goes back to her hotel. She listens to the voicemail again. So we're all caught up on exactly what Michael's got going on. She calls him trying to just leave a message because it's the middle of the night. She's passed through anyway, and the two of them connect. And this is something that happens a couple of times in the movie. He's called her and left her a message, and then clearly he has something to talk about. But as soon as she gets on the phone, he says he has something to tell her, and she's like, "Before that, I want to tell you something."
Mm-hmm.
Again, the
Classic.
miscommunication, right? So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so she says that she's going to or she's been thinking about the time when they were younger and made the pact that if by the time they turned the ripe old age of 28, if they weren't if
Ouch.
they, yep, if they weren't married already, they would marry each other. And she's turning 28, he already is 28, and he says he thinks about that all the time. So we have that signal, but then again, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm calling because I met somebody. So it's, I mean, they both do that dance. Like they both get
They
too
do.
close
Neither
and far
neither
away.
of them are very direct with what they want to say. And And that's where I agree a little bit with Jenna, because it's not best friend things. Best friends can just kind of blurt something out. They don't like walk a line and tiptoe and are careful with what they say necessarily, or careful with what they say, especially about feelings.
Right. Right. No, that's true. That's true. So he says he met someone. She is clearly not being very receptive to that information, but he presses on anyway, and we find out that he's getting married that weekend. So I think they've only known each other for about a month, he and this new person, and they're already getting married. And Julia Roberts goes to sit down on the bed and plummets to the floor.
Yeah. It's a classic part. I think it was in the trailer.
Was it?
I think so. And it was just as funny watching it in the movie.
Do you feel like you see physical comedy like that as much these days?
No, not at all. And I will laugh every time somebody falls down. So I wish that we would get back to it. Some more farts would be great as well.
Yeah, like I wonder like what this new era is where we don't have that.
I don't know. They're prettier. They fall less. I don't know.
Better core strength, more stability.
Maybe. But speaking of core strength and stability, I hate Julia Roberts because dang if from head to toe she didn't look how I wish I looked my whole life. That huge hair. And I'm more so thinking of a scene later in the movie when we get to it, but she has like a crop top on and then she has those high-rise jeans. I was like, Julia, I was so upset. Like, you look perfect right now. You're so evil, but you're perfect.
Oh my God. The curls, the way her curls were the whole movie.
I've never been more attracted to hair than Julia Roberts' hair.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good. I did actually feel very struck by it this time watching it.
Yeah. And it made me remember in Pretty Woman when she because she's wearing a wig at first in Pretty Woman.
Oh.
Do you remember that short bob that she wore? And then in another scene, and then you see her take it off and how poofy beautiful her hair is. Dang.
Yep.
Man. Anyway, let's move on.
Dang is right. Okay, so she falls off the bed. He says he's scared and he can't do this without her. And she doesn't say she's coming, but he just, again, barrels forward and assumes that she is. And so she, we just learn that she is agreeing to go to Chicago to help him with this wedding. From there,
I think it's immediately the next day. She is hopping on the next morning. She's at the airport. Is it George? That's
yeah.
Right. George took her to the airport and she's flying out for the wedding.
Yes. Yes.
And during the conversation when George is dropping her off, they're talking about what her plan should be. What is she going to do? And I think the plan is she wants to win him back.
Yeah.
Make him fall in love with her again.
Yes, and I don't think that George realizes the lengths that she's going to go
right,
to.
How serious she was about it. Yeah, because George, played by Rupert Everett, was him and Cameron Diaz, I thought were the best part of the movies. He saves her.
Yes.
He really saves midway through the movie. When we are just getting tired of Julia Roberts and her antics, he comes in and just kind of makes everything a little bit better. So
he does. Jenna was saying that she felt like he and Julia Roberts had the best chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
which I
sure
thought
did.
was true.
And who is it? Is it Dylan? What's his last name? The main guy. Is it
I cannot internalize anything about him.
Is it Dylan Mulvaney?
I don't like him.
Well, I was just gonna say Dylan Mulvaney. I was just gonna say he is just flat. Like he didn't show up for this movie.
I felt like every time he was experiencing any kind of emotion that wasn't just like pure joy, he looks like he smelled something bitter.
And then shuts down. It's like it's like he shuts down, deletes the information, and moves on. It is quite robotic of him.
Yeah, I feel like they could have gotten a better male lead.
Yeah, we've seen him do better in other things.
I haven't really seen him in other things.
He is in, and I bet we watch it, the one with Deborah Messing, where he is a male
Oh,
prostitute and she hires him to be her boyfriend.
right, right, right. Yeah, I forgot about that.
And he's pretty good in that. Yeah. It's called The Wedding Date. Huh.
Yes, I forgot about that one.
Yeah.
That was a good
Anyway,
one.
all right. We're in the airport and we're in Chicago.
Yes, and what a different scene, right? Because it's that pre 9/11 airport, so all of
Mm-hmm.
the friends and family are like right outside the gate. It was like it took me a minute to figure out like what was going on, and then I was remembering, yeah, that's how it used to be, and everybody was just
Mm-hmm.
everywhere. But yes, so she sees Michael, they run up to each other, they hit noses, and they turn, and the crowds part, and we see cute little Kimmy, played by Cameron Diaz, in
A
her.
very young Cameron Diaz, too.
Yes, yes, she's supposed to be a junior in college in this. Also, just to note, because they're like 28, so they're like 8-ish years older than her. But
Yeah.
yeah, so
Oh, something important, but not as important as in Crazy Rich Asians. Her dad is a billionaire.
yes,
So her family is quite wealthy. She doesn't, what is she going to school for?
she's
Architecture?
going to school for architecture. Yep, and her dad owns the White Sox.
Right. So she doesn't need to be doing these things, but she does have these interests that she's in. But again, she doesn't have to do it because her family's very wealthy. But she is, she is a real person and does real things. So, and that's something that we learned to like about her. Is she actually does have these interests outside of just spending money.
Yes, yes, that's true. That's true. But in this scene, when she first arrives, she's very giddy, and she embraces Julia Roberts and is very excited to meet her. They get in a car. She's a speed demon, careening down the highway, like 4 lanes at a time to get to her exit. Julia Roberts is like, trying to not fly out of the car, and so Kimmy asks her to be her maid of honor because her previous maid of honor hurt herself skiing, I think, over spring break. They like sprinkle in all these little details that really like remind you like just how young she is.
How young she is, and then she talks about is it her two really good friends are both sluts and she doesn't want them to be her maid of honor. Do you remember that?
Yeah, they're her two, the only two female cousins under 40, and they call themselves the vengeful sluts. Yeah.
Yes. And they're delightful later. So
Yes. Yeah, they're pretty funny. Yeah. Yes. So and again, Julianne doesn't really get the opportunity to consent to anything in this movie. It's just a given that now she's going to do this.
mm-hmm.
And then I think right away they're at a dress fitting because everything's
Yes.
happening so freaking fast. And she's in this beautiful lavender gown.
Yeah.
And yeah, like Kimmy is demonstrating all of the intimate knowledge that she knows about her that Michael
Mm-hmm.
just shared. I love this scene because Julianne is so uncomfortable, and she's uncomfortable with Kimmy. She's uncomfortable in the dress, like all of it. And then she like goes down, steps down to get a cigarette and just like busts the seam in the dress,
Yes.
and that the seamstress's face kills me.
I know. I thought the movie actually was paused for a second because it just nobody moved. It was so funny. Nobody
It
knew
was
what to do. Yeah, it was great. But it was lighthearted because like they can fix that. It's okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Julia, this is the least of your worries, girl.
Yes, and it's funny too because this is where like we really start seeing like this is the era when cigarette smoking was so big in movies still.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time somebody needs a relief, and it's funny because it does such a good job of communicating the anxiety and the emotion she's feeling, and it's funny that to like think about when that was such a tool to show us those emotions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think the tool they use now is?
I mean, my first thought was just a flashback to Emma Stone throwing down drinks.
Yeah, yeah, that would be good.
Yeah, from Crazy Stupid Love. I feel
Yeah.
like that. I feel like I've seen some use of cell phones, like, but I don't know. I don't know. Where is anything coming to mind for you?
No, not at all, actually. It's going to be another one of those things maybe we lost. But I bet with the cigarettes, they must have been sponsored because they show her Marlboro cigarettes. So I bet that was a pretty big sponsor, and I don't blame them for that, you know?
Yeah, yeah, different times. But yeah, so she's out of the dress. She goes into her dressing room. She's in her bra and underwear, and Michael walks in to hand her the dress, and she covers up. And again, here's what again, best friend boundaries here. He says,
Yeah,
I've seen you a lot more naked than that. And then she says things have changed, and kind of disappointedly, he says, yes, I guess they have.
yeah. And she did say come in, but like he didn't even blink twice when he saw
Well,
that
he
she
didn't
was
say it was
basically
him.
naked. I
Yeah.
know, but he still like once he came in, he didn't like turn around or anything.
No.
He just was like, "Nah, we're cool." That's basically
Yep.
what he said. Like, "No, this is okay because I've seen you naked before, so it's okay to see you like this now." And I was like,
Yeah, I feel like his character doesn't really grasp like the idea that things are changing. Like,
mm-hmm,
right, because like clearly he still feels for her. We know that Julianne feels for him,
mm-hmm.
but like she's being, secretive and manipulative about it. But he's like kind of more overt, like it's almost like equally disrespectful of him. Like everybody's being disrespectful of Kimmy.
It is, but he seems so. He comes off almost as I was going to say stupid, but I'll say naive about what's going on. I mean, it just seems like this is all going right over his head.
Yes.
And I don't understand. His boundaries are weird. I don't know. I can't figure him out.
Yeah, no, they are. Yeah, so we have that. I think right after this is when they go and meet the family, right?
Yes, it's when they're on their way to meet the family, and shoot, Kimmy and Jules arrive together. And in the
Yes.
elevator, that's when they kind of start going back and forth.
Oh
And
yeah,
and
again, the buildup of the emotion of the scene is so good, right? They get on the elevator, they're swapping. It's like that little like friendly vibe, but it's definitely competitive where they're swapping
it's
facts about
it's
Michael.
yeah, like the tone is friendly, but if you listen to him, Jules is talking about how difficult he is and stubborn, and then Kimmy stops the elevator and says, "This whole time I've been worried and I've been jealous because it's always been about you, and I've decided to just let you win." She said, I get to be the one that's in his arms. And yeah,
Yeah.
and Jules just starts like spinning and breathing heavily, like, yeah, just like you said, you can feel the anxiety she feels trapped in that elevator with her. And I mean, I feel like she must be kind of hyperventilating because she knows what she's about to do, and yet I feel like Kimmy's just so nice to her and is going to give her everything she wants except,
Mhm.
like her husband's warm bed.
Right. Right. Yes. The claustrophobia of the elevator, like the claustrophobia of the wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And then she unstops the elevator and spills out dramatically onto the ground of this reception with all these people. And she meets the
Mm-hmm.
cousins and she meets Kimmy's mother and has to go meet, as she says, some very old women. And then she gets to go to the baseball game with the boys.
And you and the scheme is on because she is
Yes.
winning everyone over. She's flirting with every man. She is the life of the party. She has some comment for everything someone says, and she really is so cute. And one of those women that are like, just one of the guys.
Yep.
But
Yep.
she's not.
No, no, she's not. But yeah, she lays it on thick here, and she's like, every time Michael tries to like assert something, she's like, I got moves you've never seen. Like,
Mm-hmm.
he says,
Yeah,
what have you done with my best friend?
a lot of innuendo. Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm frustrated with him.
That's okay. I think you're meant to be.
Yeah.
It's working.
Yeah, so she charms the whole box at the baseball game. And then that night, we see them arrive at a really busy, large karaoke bar.
But
Uh huh.
before that, she does have a little sidebar with Michael at the baseball game. Remember, they go
Yes.
down and they have a little bit more of a conversation, and he starts to say one of the things that he loves about Kimmy is that he can hug her in public and she doesn't pull away. And Jules gets kind of squirrely and she tries to muster up the ability to ask if she did that, and he helps her and he's like, yeah, you did. And she tries to say, well, now I'm different now, like basically like trying to say that she's the kind of girl that he would want to be with, even though two things. One, it's well established that she's the one that would not choose him. So she rejected him initially. And number two, like, obviously it's not going to work out because she has not changed. So
Yeah, and how hurtful it is to watch a woman. I mean, me personally, half of my life I spent trying to please men. The other half I've been spending making choices to please myself and not changing who I am for really anybody, unless it's like for the better for me. So it's hard. It's hard to watch a woman change who she is just so a man will notice her. I could feel the stress of that.
Yeah.
And the weight of it, that the pressure she feels to try to get what she wants.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's a good point. What do you feel like for you? Like, what made you make that change to stop doing that? You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it took separating, and then it took a long time for me to feel like I could make my own decisions.
Yeah.
And that's what it was a lack of personal decision making, like just going along with everything and being that person that needs to go along with everything.
Right.
And that's what it is. And the realizing I had never really made a decision for myself or my kids was pretty heavy. And I think that's when I realized that point is when I took a hard turn to change priorities,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
well,
so I know that there must have been I don't know. Do you just feel like the mental instability she was going through? I feel like I can feel the crazy woman that's rising out of her, because I have felt it too.
No, I definitely felt that, because it's like, yeah, like wanting this thing to work to the detriment of yourself. Right. And like, I think it's hard to, like, I can think of times where I've put myself in that position too. And I think it's hard to have like I don't even know what the word would be, but like, just like to know that like, if you have to do that, then it's not the thing that you think it is anyway. Right. But I think that's such a hard thing. Like, I don't know why that there's such a big like gap in the brain between like that fact and like how you feel,
like there's like a barrier there. Okay, where were we?
I was listening. You guys were talking about how
women have a barrier in their brain.
About how she was making herself an insane person because she wanted something so bad, right?
Yeah. Basically, yes. You summed it up. Yeah.
I mean, yes. If I could just, jump
if in,
if I may interject in the middle of your pre-established conversation. I agree. She's going a little desperado on this situation. She's getting a little crazy.
However,
okay.
Let me say, through that crazy, that she got quite motivated and accomplished a lot. So that's not to say going crazy doesn't make you like ineffective,
Well, she certainly accomplished her goal.
Just motivated to a wild extent to do something a little weird.
Yeah.
I mean, it's toxic as fuck. She is causing so much chaos in this poor guy's life. This guy and Cameron's character, what was her name again? Kimmy, right. This lady's just like swooping in out of nowhere. She's like, "Oh, you're getting married? Well, that makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm just gonna swoop in out of nowhere and just stir up your entire lives." And then, you know what I mean? Like, it's so mean.
Yeah. And we've gotten through the conversation that Kimmy and Jules had in the elevator. That weird confrontation they had where Kimmy acknowledged that
He's got
Jules
you on a
wins,
pedestal
right?
and me in his
I
arms.
was proud of Kimmy in that scene. I was like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you go, girl. Like you tell her exactly, you know exactly what's going on here.
Mm-hmm.
She stood up for
So
herself in a big way there.
so now we are arriving at the dive bar karaoke bar.
Okay.
And yeah, and Jules, Michael is like so excited. Again, makes me annoyed at him because it's like Kimmy doesn't like this and he knows that, but he's like so happy to be there with Jules. And then she turns around and just like lies to Kimmy and says, I didn't know this was a karaoke bar, right after saying to Michael that she got the tip on the karaoke bar from the guy at the front desk. So
Right. And we know immediately, just as they walk through the front door, the look on Kimmy's face, she is unhappy and uncomfortable. And
yeah,
we know
she's
it's a
dressed
yeah,
different and
something's
yeah.
coming.
Yeah, she looks really out of place, like with her
Yep, they
clothes.
sit down at the table. Jules and Michael start walking down memory lane. They're sitting facing each other. Body language and
Mhm.
conversation is so exclusive. Kimmy keeps trying to interject, and she's just so good at what she does. But and then like repeats herself a couple times to like get into the conversation,
Mhm.
and then that woman has the microphone and turns around and says, "Hey, Pinky, I want to hear you sing."
You know what I love about this scene? Like, this is just like another example of like why I love Cameron Diaz so fucking much. This entire scene, because she like she gets up, right? They force her to sing. Julia or Julianne.
Jules.
I call her
All
Jules
right,
to not get
Jules.
so confused.
She's being mean, right? She's trying to set her up for failure. She's trying to make her look like an idiot, right? But this character, Kimmy, is so funny and so cute. She's like, fine, I'll do it. She sings so bad the whole time. This is another example of the movie having time for itself
Hmm.
because they do the whole song like that,
And the
like,
Yeah, in the first verse, everyone's looking at her like, I cannot believe you're singing because it's so bad. But then you realize they are almost in awe of her as the crowd starts singing along, that she has the balls to get up there and sing. And as you go on, Kimmy's having a great time.
Yeah, she
yeah.
transitions from being like so uncomfortable to like
Right.
kind of laughing at herself a little. And when she is having fun, then the crowd starts to have fun.
Yeah, she really leans into singing poorly as well. And I'm pretty sure this was like Cameron Diaz was actually terrified of doing this because I don't think she sings well.
Well, she
And
nailed
I
it.
read that she was terrified.
Oh my
Um,
God.
Oh,
Well, then
but
that plays into the authenticity of the scene.
it really does. And the look on Julia Roberts' face, she's so disappointed as she realizes her first plan failed, but it won't hold her back.
well,
Yeah.
and I also thought that the face acting on her was pretty good here too, because so Kimmy starts to get into it. She's having a good time. The crowd is into it. And Jules is like in disbelief, but then she, despite herself, has like a real smile too. It's like she
Mm-hmm.
can't hate her,
Yeah.
Like she wants to hate her, but she can't hate her, and that makes her hate her even more.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's true.
Yeah. And then they finish the song, and Michael's like, loves it, and he says it was terrible, and they like make out, and the crowd goes wild.
Yeah. Honestly, it's great.
It is.
Yes.
It's a great scene.
Yes. They leave the bar. Kimmy has to go through the wedding stuff with like the grandmother or
Mm-hmm.
something, and Julia or Jules actually she's about to go with her in her time of need, she says. So I mean, she's so manipulative because she like sets Kimmy up to have to be like, well, I'm not in a time of need, and then she like pops right out of the cab and sticks with Michael instead, and they go have their uh, street food and they're sitting on a stairwell and then Michael has to move over because someone walks by and so they just like keep getting closer and closer, right? And this is where Jules finally admits that she was like shocked when he said he was getting married and she starts to through casual conversation say, well, you travel on the road all the time for your job for sports writing. I'm surprised it hasn't come up, them offering you a job. And he says, I love my job. She knows that she would never. Then
Mm-hmm.
now we have the seed planted for the next manipulation.
Ugh, it's so I like even in this scene I just wanted to smack her because I was like she like also kind of like I feel like she was manipulating him. She kind of like disparaged him a little bit even in this scene. You know what I mean? Like to get him
Hmm.
to feel like on unsteady ground, you know.
Hmm.
Um, but then at the same time, I'm also like, this guy is such an idiot. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Thank you, Jenna.
yeah, like, dude, you can't see what this is. You can't see what this is. Like, you just sent your fucking fiance off in a cab and left with this woman, you know what I mean? Who's now planting seeds of doubt in your mind. Like, grow a brain, bro. Like,
But I will also say here, I mean, I agree with all that, but at the same time, she does have a good point because she says, like Kimmy's gonna travel like with you. She's not going back to school in the fall. She's not gonna finish her degree. Like
no, she's
she's
right
giving up.
about these things. Like,
Yeah.
but there's a way to be a good friend about this type of a
Yes.
conversation, and this is not it.
Oh, sure, but she doesn't want to be a good friend. She.
No,
No, I mean
that's yeah.
that's why it's prime for manipulation because there
Mhm.
actually is a problem here,
Yes.
but
Right, right.
and he again, I don't like him because I'm like, why do you need her to not be in school? Like why does she need to
That too.
travel with
Actually,
you?
that too. That yeah, that part I don't understand why, but like this whole thing is obviously rushed. Like,
Yeah, but yeah, so then the next day, Jules is with Kimmy and they're like having lunch and doing wedding prep and stuff. And she starts to manipulate on the back end now. And she says, well, of course, Michael would want to get off the road. You and your father. She even kind of admits that she's scheming. She says, well, make your father a co-conspirator. So
Mhm.
now she's getting everybody in on the manipulation. She's just like inceptioning all the manipulative practices
Right.
happening
So
here.
she's trying to get Kimmy's family to hire Michael, correct?
yeah,
That's what she's trying to do.
yeah.
She wants them to put an offer on the table so that Michael gets upset.
Yes.
Yeah.
Why? Why would he get upset? Because it's hard to say no.
Because he loves his job and they know it.
So
Because he loves his job
why can't he just say no thanks, I love my job?
because he's immature.
So that's really okay, because I did get a little confused about this whole scheme because I was like, I don't fully understand what the actual issue is with him being offered a job.
So when we get to the next scene and Kimmy shows up and Jules and Michael are already at the table, clearly they've called this lunch because Kimmy has something to say because he looks at her and says, "You're up, kid," which I'm like,
Hmm.
all right, do you think it's good that you're marrying somebody that you're referring to as kid? But neither here nor there. So just a side thought, but
Yeah, so yes, PSA for the audience. If you're dating someone and
Hmm.
they call you a kid,
you are
just
not on even ground.
yeah, think a little more about this. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so and then she starts to say, my dad's restructuring things in the business. It would just be 6 months or 3 or 4. Michael sees that she's trying to get him to take a desk job.
Hmm.
He's primed from the conversation with Jules to be defensive about this because you're right, Jenna. She did disparage him a little bit, and
Yeah.
so he could just politely decline and say, "Listen, babe, I love my job. I'm not going to do that." But instead,
Yeah.
he has a meltdown.
Yeah, and he gets like really kind of mean to Kimmy, and I have a note here that I underlined that said Michael is a fickle man. So quickly he will turn on this his
Hmm.
cute fiance, you know? So,
Well, and Whitney, this makes me think about what you were saying before too, because about how Jules is trying to change herself for him. But
Hmm.
like Kimmy is so far down the road of changing herself for Michael too, because
all
she
for
starts
what? All for
weeping. I
what?
feel so bad.
All for this personality-less, this man that has no personality.
Yeah. But she's like weeping and because he's like, well, I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm learning this, like 2 days before our wedding, Kimmy, like better now than later. But I'm the asshole and like, me and my low paying job. And he just like is such a baby about it instead of
Yeah.
just like being
Hmm.
confident, but he's insecure because he's like emotionally stunted. And so here we are. And so then she's like weeping. Jules looks mortified because I think she's not a bad person. She's just doing really bad things, you know?
Do you think she is surprised at herself throughout the movie?
Yes.
Like constantly going back and forth, but the little devil on her shoulders always winning each time.
I think
Yes.
she is because I think there was a scene where she was like when she was this comes a little later, but when she was like crying
in the
in the
hallway.
hallway in the hotel, and she was just like,
Mhm.
I am terrible.
Yeah, and she was right.
And she was right.
Yes.
But Cameron, yeah,
Yep.
but like back to Cameron in this scene though, like how good is her crying here? Like,
Ugh, made me feel so sad.
I know,
Yes.
I know. But
This,
like,
this is the time where she begs him,
Yes.
right? Like
yeah,
just
you
to,
feel
Yes.
bad for her, but she's only 20 years old in this movie. You know, like that's kind of checks out for that age, you
yeah, but
know?
he also, I don't care how old she is, he is treating her poorly
Oh, no, no,
and
Yes.
no,
not
for
and
sure.
not respecting her
Oh,
opinion enough as part of, his
for
family.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's not honoring like where she's at, honestly. If you're gonna date someone, they're 8 years apart. It's really nothing to sneeze at, but at this point, she's 20 and he's 28, so that's a big
Mhm.
difference. And
Her
like,
prefrontal cortex is not going to be developed for 6 more years.
yeah, yeah. And at which point they will get a divorce. But like, but in the meantime, like he should be honoring her youth a little bit more and understanding that like maybe she doesn't exactly know what she that she shouldn't be changing herself for him. I feel like if
Mhm.
you're gonna date someone that much younger, like you should at least respect that they might want to do that and you have to stop them from doing that. You have to be like, no, 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 babe, like you're good. You don't have to change for me. I love you the way you are, but he does not do that for her.
Yes.
No, I think when there's that big of an age gap, obviously the older both parties are, the less that you feel that. But I just think, yeah, at that point in both of their lives, it's
Yeah.
like there's such a power dynamic that would be impossible, to remove, I think, and
Well,
he's not
unless
even
Michael,
trying.
well, he's not even trying, right? Exactly. But anyway,
Anyway,
what's the next scene?
We keep going back to the same tangent and we're all exhausted from getting on that tangent.
Yeah, I
well,
think
But we can't stop.
it's well established. It's well established.
well, I think this is where now we cut to Julia calling George and having like a meltdown.
Can I
And
say
he's
something before this though? So when
no.
they are, no, I'm saying it anyway. All right, so that scene where Kimmy is talking to Michael and Julia Roberts is in the background. If you just watch Julia, first she is half smiling like the whole time. Like she is just a spectator in this wonderful game that she just set up. And sometimes you can see that. But also, they made Kimmy look so plain. She's not wearing much makeup. And then if you look at Julia Roberts, she's honestly wearing more than normal.
Hmm.
Like her eyes are all done up and everything. And I know that must have been intentional because it's
Hmm.
so different.
Hmm.
What do you
Her
guys
hair's
think?
all done up in that scene too, right?
Right. This is probably the best you see, other than that the scene later where they're running and Julia looks perfect.
Yeah, when she's in her wedding attire, like,
Not the pre-wedding attire, the pants and the like crop top.
oh, oh,
We talked
oh,
about this before because
Yeah,
Whitney
sorry
said
you
she
missed
hates
it.
Julia Roberts because
oh,
she looked perfect.
Because of that. Yeah. I won't go. I won't go there.
oh my God.
Anyway,
That's
but Julia Roberts looks so much more intentionally beautiful
yeah,
than Kimmy. Like they were trying for us to look at Julia and not Kimmy as well.
well, and maybe it also has something to do with like signifying that like Julia's putting all so much effort in, and like
Mm-hmm.
Kimmy's really just like, even though she's trying to change herself a little bit for him in some other ways, like she is largely just being herself in general.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like so maybe it has something to do with that too. Like
Well, and
Julia's, oh,
I
sorry, go.
feel like we give Julia a hard time because she's older. She should know better than to be like this. But I'll give Kimmy a little bit of credit because she's only 20.
Yeah,
I mean, he's taking advantage,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah. Of her ignorance a little bit. Yeah, for sure.
Sorry, took us right back on that tangent.
And we're back.
Okay, so Jules calls George. He's having a dinner party. I don't know why all of his like telecommunications volumes are at maximum at the whole
Yeah.
movie, but
Yes.
anyway. So his voicemail, she starts leaving a voicemail. She's
Not
freaking
voicemail
out.
because this is a long time ago. It's his answering machine in his house.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
There we
So
go.
it's
For all
playing
the
out loud for
Yes,
all the guests to hear.
Yeah. So if you don't know, we had answering machines and they would, as you left the message, it would play to the entire house. And then it would also play when you pressed play.
yes,
Those
yes.
were
And
the
so
days.
So you
at
could
this,
hear that voicemail being told to you live.
Yeah.
and he apparently wanted to hear that in the far corners of his house because it was at max volume.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So all his guests hear her flipping out, causing more chaos in other people's lives.
It was so funny.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It seems like almost a joke because it was so far out there what she was freaking out.
Well,
Yeah.
this is like her unhinged, like George gets
Yes.
the unfiltered
Right.
mental state of her.
The true
Yeah.
self.
And so yeah, so she leaves that message, and um the next morning she wakes up, she's really hit the mini bar in her hotel room hard. She's like stumbling to the front door because someone's knocking, and it's George. He's flown to Chicago. He hates flying.
Obviously.
He's there just to be with her, to help her, and he starts to try to give her advice, like, you need to just tell him the truth, like, stop with these games, tell him the truth. And so he gets her cleaned up. Michael is having his suit fitting. They George goes with her there and says, like, go tell the truth. And so she goes over. She like kind of keeps building herself up to it, and George is making a fool of himself off to the side, knocking over the mannequins, redressing them. Again,
Oh,
the physical comedy.
do we need to say? I know I said this is Rupert Everett, and Rupert Everett is so funny, but he's very gay in this movie. Have we
Yes.
established that before
Oh,
we go
yeah.
to the next part?
I think
I
that
don't
they
think we said
established,
it.
well,
Okay.
we didn't say it, but they did a good job establishing it when they were showing the answering machine and there was a picture of him and his husband or long-term partner or whatever next to the answering machine.
Okay, but now our audience knows that
Yeah.
this character George is gay.
He's gay.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what I appreciate about this movie? Just to throw in a quick thing, like his being gay and whatever, like it's just a normal part of like their lives in the
Yep.
movie. They don't make anything out of it. Like it's not, you know what I mean? Like it's just
Yeah.
that's just her gay, her best friend who's gay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was completely, it was just normal.
Yeah, and there was never a part where anyone like made a joke
Right.
about it or
It wasn't about that ever.
Yeah. And I feel like in 90s movies, even sometimes when they throw in a queer character, somebody makes a joke at their expense at some point.
Yeah.
And because the mainstream back then felt the need to do that. And that does not happen in this movie, and I appreciated that. There was one part where Michael was like, I thought he was gay, but like he didn't make a joke at his expense. He was just like, I thought he was gay.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So Jules keeps hemming and hawing around saying the actual truth. George keeps accidentally drawing attention to himself. Michael recognizes him finally, and then it cuts to the two of them from afar talking. They seem really happy. They both go over to George with huge smiles, and both men say congratulations to each other at the same time, because we find out that Jules has made up a new lie that she and George are engaged to be married, and she just told Michael that.
She would be so lucky. God.
Yes, and so
she is such a manipulator. Like
what's funny is this one doesn't seem, I mean, she's not hurting anyone on this one.
Well, only because George is down.
Right.
George
and
is
he
like,
punishes her.
Yes,
Yeah.
which I really appreciate. He's like, oh,
Yes.
you're gonna do this to me? Well, look at what I can do to you now.
Yes. So this one wasn't as, when I watched this movie when I was younger, I feel like I was rooting for Julia Roberts and I barely noticed Cameron Diaz was in it. But now when I watch this movie and I watch Julia do what she does, my body hurts from the anxiety she causes.
Yeah.
And I know that that's the person I've become because that happens a lot in these movies.
Isn't that funny? I did say to Lauren like halfway through this, or probably around this part, I remember looking at you and being like, am I supposed to be on Jules' side in this? Like, because I'm not. Like, but I can see like back in 1997 being focused on her and being on her side because she's in love.
Yeah, I would have been 11 watching this.
Yeah.
I would have
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's just so weird to watch it again.
Yeah.
And being basically a completely different person.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, times have changed. Well, you're a completely different person, but also like I think if you were this age in 1997, you still would have been on Jules' side because I think back then people were not looking at toxic dynamics. They were not thinking about this shit.
Yeah.
Like, so I think everybody would have been on Jules' side. I think very few people would have recognized how manipulative her behavior was back then.
Yeah, I wonder.
But either way, George is he gives it to her good. He's like, fine, I'll be your fiance. And then he
Well,
just
she says just for one day, find me irresistible. And you see if you watch his face, every time she gives him like an order, he like looks upset and then immediately switches to like, all right,
Yeah.
And so they get to the church for the rehearsal, and he immediately starts yelling and carrying on. Kimmy comes over and is like so excited. He's excited with her. He screams. He slaps her on the butt. The mother comes over, like he
he
charms the shit
slaps
out of her.
everybody on he slaps all the women on the ass.
Yep.
Which I
Wait,
love.
where's the part that they say that he's only here for a few hours? Oh, to fuck me.
Yeah,
that's
that
I
was
know.
weird. I found that line very out of character for the movie. I was like, wait, did she just say he flew in to fuck me?
Yeah,
Like
but
I
then he carries it into the wedding and actually does embarrass her with it.
but it didn't that line seem out of place to you? Like I didn't expect that
No,
in this movie. No?
Well,
no,
to
because
me,
I think she wanted to shock him.
Yeah.
I think that's true. I think for it, so on Netflix, it says it's PG-13 for two reasons. There's mild sexual innuendo and one curse word, and
Mhm.
that's the one. And so I think it's like it's so shocking too because it's not like they say anything even remotely close to an offensive word the whole rest of the movie, and then
Yeah.
it's just yeah.
Yeah, just it caught me off guard a little bit, but
Yeah, I think it was intentional.
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, they're in the cab and he's like he won't stop like pawing at her because she said find me irresistible, and that's when Michael says I thought he was gay, and he says, well, I find acting that way attracts women. Like that's his excuse, right? And then we're in the church, we have that scene, and then they say, George, you have to stay for lunch, and he says, love to, love the shoes, love the purse, love to.
Yes. Can we talk about in the cab for a second? This is the part of the movie where I felt like Michael uh, were they not in the same cab? Because Julia was 2 inches away from his head, looking at him the whole time, like a puppy dog, and he
Yeah,
didn't
like you'd
notice
feel
her. It's
that.
a tiny cab. There's 3 people in the back.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah. He's an
that's
idiot.
that's the part of the movie where I started to get a little upset with him.
Yeah, he's an idiot. He knows
Yeah.
what's going on. He knows what's going on this entire time. Like he cannot claim ignorance that these people like have like unfinished business with each other,
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah.
So yeah, so we get to lunch. It's at this bustling lobster themed restaurant. They are talking about
Made me want lobster, by the way.
did it?
Yeah. I
Nice.
did it did. I was like, "Ooh, I could crack into one of those right about now."
um, but yeah, long story short, we start the family starts asking questions about how George and Julianne met, and she's like trying to shut down him contributing at all, and he just off the cuff makes up this huge story about meeting her in a mental institution, and
I love
it's
that.
so good.
As soon as he
I'm
said
not going to
mental,
go through the details, but
yeah.
it's a great story. And then at the end, he says he's meeting with somebody who's imagining that they are Dionne Warwick, and when he says, could this person ever love me? This fake Dionne Warwick breaks into say a little prayer for you or whatever that song's called,
And
but
this
he starts
is
performing it.
and then the restaurant joins in like
The
slowly, and this is
entire restaurant.
yeah, but this
Yes.
is another example of a moment in this movie where the movie takes its time with the joke. It has time
Mhm.
for itself. Like they slowly build up, people start joining and joining and joining, and they sing the whole fucking song again. Like I
and
was
and the what's cool is through each of those songs where they take their time. You can watch Jules go through a transition each time, just like she did when she was watching Kimmy with the karaoke, and she
yeah,
eventually started to grow on her, and she actually started to you could watch Jules feel a little bit of joy,
right.
and that same thing happens here, but it took that entire experience to get her there. So maybe that's part of it too.
That
she needs a
That's a
little
good
bit of
point.
time to be
Y-
brought in and
Yeah.
to start seeing clearly, at least for that moment, you know?
Yeah, I think that's a good point though. Like that she does like slowly soften up throughout the course of these like long form jokes that
Hmm.
are put into the movie. I
Yeah, I
just
Well,
think.
and in this
miss
one too.
Oh, sorry. We all had a thought at the exact same time.
I think it helps show how uptight she is.
Yes. That,
Also, the one thing I was going to say here is that Michael has like a cranky face for the whole song because he hates that she's like with some other guy. And all I want to say is I would be very aware if my partner was like that cranky about something. Like I
Yes.
wouldn't, Kimmy's like looking at him and laughing and like he's like got
yeah.
that face on. You know what I mean? Like she should have been like, "What's your deal, man?" You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if she's as insecure about Jules as she says she was. Like
Hmm.
she should have been paying attention, you know?
Hmm.
She should have been paying attention and also like, George, hello. Hello. Like you you know what I mean? Like again, this guy's gonna or no, sorry, not George,
Michael.
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 Like, dude, like I just want to like knock on his empty head and be like, you're gonna have the gall to act surprised about this later when you can't even have a fucking simple fun time because she's got a fiance? Like, come
Hmm.
on, dude.
Yeah. One of my favorite things about George in this movie too is that everybody knows now that I get frustrated when people don't just have a conversation. And I like that one of his roles as a character was to just say, "Can you just have a conversation?"
Hmm.
Because at least someone's saying it, even if it doesn't happen, at least someone's saying it. But
Hmm.
Yeah.
but yeah,
He's definitely the voice. He is the voice of reason the entire time. And he
Yes.
acts everything that George does and says is like exactly what you like would expect him. You know what I mean? Like he really like yeah, there's nothing like unbelievable about his
Hmm.
character. Yeah.
yeah. So they leave the restaurant. Michael drives them, or they're in a cab or something, to the airport. Julia is with George and says, she's sorry and thank you. And
She does not say
George,
thank you to him.
she doesn't.
No, I took a note of it. I was like, she never thanks George. All of her
Hmm.
relationships are one-sided. George kisses her on lips a lot. Those are my
Also,
notes here.
also, that's horrible, but also, isn't he her boss?
No, he's her editor.
Her editor. Okay. Not her
Yeah.
boss.
They're like a
Okay.
team. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'll
she,
say.
but what I'll say here though is, he's like leaving. He's clearly not that happy with her, but then
Hmm.
she's not okay, and so he like so smoothly turns around at the door at the airport and comes back and says, "Just do what you came here to do. Say
Right.
goodbye."
She says, George, what will he do? And that's when he turns around and tells her what to do, just like
Hmm.
you said. Yeah.
And then comes back to kiss her on the lips.
Yep.
Because that's what these best friends do.
Well, I noticed later at the wedding scene, um, Kimmy and her dad kiss each other on the lips too.
I
There's a lot
noticed
of
that
lip
too.
kissing.
There's a
Yeah.
lot, yeah, a lot of lip kissing. I don't
My
I
aunts used to kiss me on the lips. I do think it is a sign of the times.
huh,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, when I was a kid, my parents would.
Hmm.
huh.
Yeah.
But it was around this
Yes.
time in the
Yeah, I was
90s.
7 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
Weird.
I never got any lip kisses. Well,
Well, maybe that
maybe.
explains things.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Moving moving right along.
um,
Uh,
yeah, so she gets back in the car, and then she immediately explains to Michael that she and George are not in fact engaged, and he just like again at this point he should have been like, "What is your problem?" Because she's like got this bullshit story that you know George was so wounded and she didn't want him to lose face in front of Michael, and I'm just thinking like this is even if that was true, that's still a lot of red flag behavior.
But
Like
it
you just
also
crashed.
it sounds made up.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but everybody's so self-involved that Michael's just like, wow, it's crazy and I'm sorry, but I was like jealous.
Yeah. And at this part of the movie, it started to get a little slow for me. It felt a little dramatic between the two. So the next couple minutes took a really long time for me. They had that private time on the boat
Yeah.
ferry. I'm not sure what they're on.
Yeah,
So,
he asks if they can spend some alone time together. They're on the ferry
Right. And I felt
chatting about.
uncomfortable. I just felt uncomfortable the whole time because
yeah.
I knew that's the exact opposite of what they should have been doing.
Yes. Well, and even she even makes like a joke that again, it's just all the bad boundaries. Like they're on the thing and he's like, I was realizing like I've been thinking a lot about us and this might be the last time that we'll be alone. And and she says, except for that steamy affair we'll have twice a year. And he's like,
Mm-hmm.
except for that. And it's like they're so close at this point to just saying like we have unfinished business, but it's not going to work out. And like they still just don't say it. The one thing I do like about this scene is I think when he's like, Kimmy says that if you love someone, you just say it. Otherwise, the moment just passes you by. And I feel like them going under the bridge, the way the music builds, like
Mm-hmm.
they really do create a moment that passes them by, and
Yes.
that is the opportunity, right? Like it's a slow scene, and they're both annoying at this point, but like that was the opportunity, and then neither one of them says it, and that's it. And I think that's when as like the viewer that this is doomed for them, like
Mm-hmm.
this is not going to work out.
Yeah. I do think that that's some good cinematography, like some good movie making there where yeah, that
I'll tell you,
moment.
like
Yeah.
I love this movie so much, even though even now watching it again, like at this age, I still love it because it makes you feel that longing feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
I there's something like so intoxicating about that feeling. Like I think they really capture that really well, even though it's like all very messed up. So I think, and this is like an example of that in the scene.
Yeah. They do create that longing with them. There's a couple moments of that longing with these two, like three big ones in this movie, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just like I agree, like they do a good job setting up the longing. I just I'm not, like I'm not as sympathetic to Jules. You know what I
No,
mean? So it kind of cuts into that a little bit for me. It's like unlike the longing in The Wedding Singer, which I'm completely bought into.
Oh my gosh, I
sure.
thought about the wedding singer during this movie too.
You did? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they did it.
Because I enjoyed this movie so much and I was in a bad mood, mostly from food, when I turned this on. And just the song intro in the beginning cheered me up immediately. And
Yeah.
I did because the wedding singer is so cheerful. There's not a dull moment, and there's not really a not too long of a down moment, not a
No.
serious down moment. So if Julia didn't make me feel feel crazy myself, I think I would like this one just as much as the wedding singer, but it did bring me a lot of joy like that one does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's lighthearted. It's a lighthearted
Yeah, and
movie.
you know what it
Even
is? It's the side characters again.
yeah, the
Hmm.
side characters are great. Yeah, I mean, yeah, despite all of our going on and on and on about all these dynamics and everything, it is a lighthearted movie. It's a fun
Mm-hmm.
movie. It's silly, it's funny. It's got its little quirks and its little like again, it's jokes that they take their time,
Mm-hmm.
going through, which I love, like a good but it is like a yeah, it's a light movie overall. It's
Mm-hmm.
like not very consequential. But
So here we are getting to one of the worst manipulations of the whole movie.
Oh,
Jules gets dropped off at the father's work at the White Sox building and comes up with a reason to go to his office and starts drafting an email that is meant to get Michael fired. So it's manipulative and it's supposed to be from the father saying that his daughter's happiness depends on Michael basically getting fired from his road job so that he'll be forced to take a desk job at the White Sox.
yes.
She goes to hit send. She realizes how terrible that would be. And then she decides to save it for later because then, she's got this scheme where she can somehow get Michael up to that office later to,
Mm-hmm.
casually view the drafts written. Like so much
I
would
don't
have to
get
happen
this.
for that to
I
happen. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't this is like the one part in the writing of this movie where I'm like, really? This is it? This is the big thing? Like
Yep.
save it for later and then he'll somehow come back. Like this all was like so much of a stretch. I was like, I think they could have done this a little differently,
I,
but
I think it's a stretch, but also I think it's unforgivable.
that
Yeah.
too. That too.
Yep.
This was so aggressive
Yeah.
and
Yep.
and harmful and intentional
And
Yes.
that
like
I think
a
it's
breach
unforgivable. Yeah.
and a breach of privacy, like going on this guy's like trusting her. He's like, yeah, go use my office. Like,
Hmm.
you know what I mean? Yeah, like no, I agree with you, Whitney. This whole thing is unforgivable and not well thought out.
No.
Yeah. So she is in the office, they're about to leave, and the father just mentions to his secretary in passing, I have some emails I drafted over lunch if you could send those out, which I think is funny. Like, is this
I've
what
never
people
heard anyone do that. Is that a real thing?
well, that's what I was wondering. I'm like, is that what the workflow was really like in 1997? And then my other question is, I've never seen an email addressed to someone's name and title and not like an at something.com
Right.
address.
Right.
I do you are like I bet that is how the workflow was when email was new because just prior to this, people would have still been sending faxes and letters, and those would probably be queued up for a secretary to send off. So, like, the
Right.
immediate transition to email probably looked similar.
I
You
could,
know what I
yeah,
mean?
I could agree with that. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So flash forward, Jules and Michael are outside of the now empty office building at night. Everything's locked. She's like basically about to bust
Crazy.
through a door.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And why wasn't he questioning this, her
Yeah.
behavior, literally trying to break the door down to get
Yeah.
inside because
Yep.
she needed a file?
Yeah. I
Yep.
would have been like, no way, you're
She's a
lying.
food
There's,
critic. What do you need a file for?
Right.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was stupid.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go back to the hotel. She's sulking. She's like, because she's, now she's like, it's over, my last thing, And he says, if it was really that important to you, I'll call George and get, or not George, the father, and get
Right.
the
Well,
key and whatever. And then, but he's got these like little like notes and like a fax from his employer. Goes into her hotel room and says, "Why are all these from my boss?" And then we find out that the email was sent, and Eric, his boss, is trying to give him a heads up of like the crazy family that he's about to marry into. And this is when he's upset. He calls Kimmy's house and he asks Jules for the room. She goes out into the hallway, sits down, and lights up her Marlboro.
yes.
Her brand, you're very specific about the brand.
We
We
know
talked
that we were
about it.
talking about it.
Oh, okay.
How they probably were endorsed by Marlboro because they showed the package
They
and
do. They
how
show her,
weird it is to see these times where you can just kind of smoke anywhere you want. And it was cool to show kids on the movies and stuff.
yeah. I
Very
know because
expressive.
the
Mhm.
Marlboro package is like facing the camera and she like slides the
Mhm.
cigarette out of it.
And what's the name of the guy that's the hotel?
Paul Giamatti, a
Yeah,
very
I could not
young
believe
Paul
that was him.
Giamatti. Oh my
Yep.
gosh. I don't know. I didn't know until did I watch the, I must have seen, no, it was the credits. When the credits were rolling, I saw that's who it was.
Yeah.
What is he
That's
from?
crazy.
He's in Lady in the Water. He's in
Everything. He's
Huh.
everything. Yeah, he's in
great.
a lot of stuff. Yeah, he's a good
Huh.
guy. But yeah, so well, I mean, I don't know that he's a good guy, but I like him in movies. But anyway, so
He's a good guy. Yeah.
yeah,
He's a good guy in the movie.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. He's pushing a luggage cart down, and he tries to tell her, ma'am, it's a non-smoking floor, and this is when she says, Jenna, what you were saying before, that she's not a good person, and he should do a citizen's arrest, and she wouldn't, put up a fight. And she says that arresting her would be like catching Al Capone on tax evasion, which I thought was pretty funny.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then she gets him to take a puff of the cigarette. It's kind of like a sweet scene, but I mean, she's like trembling, like she's
Mhm.
she's done something very bad.
Hmm.
However,
Yes.
I don't see much remorse. I don't see her experiencing some sort of urgency within her to fix it. I see
No.
her feeling guilty that she's going to let it play out.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, because then Michael opens the door, and
She cutely falls backwards into the room, obviously.
Right.
yes. And the thing is like, again, if she had nothing to do with it, then she shouldn't be like that. She should be concerned about him and like, what happened? What are you gonna do? What do you need? Right. But instead, like, that should have been a red flag for him too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But is this a scene where she falls back and then she's laying on the floor so we can get that Julia Roberts shot of her laying in a sea of her hair, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then this is the scene where he also realizes that she has the ring on? Or is that a
No,
different?
that's
Oh,
later. Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah,
this moved
because he
quick.
sticks her whole finger
Yeah.
in his mouth and takes the
Yeah,
ring
and
off.
sucks the ring off. I was like, oh, okay. And this is the guy
Oh,
that's
and
gonna
she
be
like
shot.
made a face too.
Yeah, like, and I'm like, okay, that's very sexual. That is a very, very sexual thing. That is foreplay.
Okay.
And
Well, in his defense, he just broke up with Kimmy because he accused Kimmy and her dad of sending that email and they denied it.
yeah, I know. But then he's all surprised, like we
That's
keep
his one
saying.
defense I'll give him.
But
Yeah.
here's what I'm going to say. If she can't pry the ring off, is that really going to come off so simple that way?
Well,
Just
no,
needed a,
Lauren. No, but they needed a sexy scene.
Right.
it was dumb. It was dumb.
Yeah, Vaseline would have done the job, but
What I do want to say is Jules clearly was like really turned on and probably thought she might be able to get something to happen. And he,
yeah.
being the devoid of emotion person that he is, did come across as hurt.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so they were like, the acting is good in that you could tell they are on two separate
Yeah.
wavelengths.
Yeah. No, that's a
They're in
good
two
point.
separate movies, kind of, you know?
Yeah.
Well, and she says, should we get some food? Should we do this? Should we do that? And he says, I just want to be alone.
I was proud of him in that moment. I was like, yeah, walk away, dude. Like
Yeah, I
this,
was relieved. Yeah.
yeah.
If this was a movie made in 2017, they would have hooked up.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah. All right,
All
so
right.
we get the finger suck. He walks away. Everybody in the movie theater is all hot and bothered. Where are we going from
Okay,
here?
we wake up the next morning. Julia has a knock on her door again. It's not George this time, but instead it's like a little envelope
A
with a
message
message
that's
in
been
it.
left. Mhm.
And it's a message that I think we're meant to find out communicates that the wedding day brunch is still happening and
Yeah.
everybody's still there, even though Michael has told Kimmy he doesn't want to marry her anymore. So she goes, she's underdressed, she's in the outfit that Whitney keeps.
Yeah, I mean, if she did anything right during this movie, it was the outfit. Good God, she looks so hot.
But it was so inappropriate for where she was.
Yeah, but she could have just been like, oh, she could have just been like, oh, I'm about to go change, but look how hot I am. Like
Whitney,
this,
it
so
did it
good.
for you.
This is how I always wanted to look. That's the look I always went for. I feel like
Oh, really? The crop top,
she
like,
nailed it.
oh my God, that's so funny.
We can move on. Okay.
Meanwhile, I'm sitting over here like annoyed. I was annoyed at her outfit because I was like, how dare you show up to this? This woman is fucking crazy showing up to this event in this crop top. Like, she's so toxic. Get rid of her.
I
But that's
also
the
thought,
thing,
how
though.
dare you? How dare you look so good, Jules? I loved it.
Oh
All
my
right,
God,
I'll
that's
stop.
But she's meant to look like an outsider now, right?
Yeah.
Because it's supposed to be over, and now she's just frustrated that it's not over, right? Like
yeah,
again, she's over all her misdeeds. Now she just wants to reap the reward from,
yeah.
like she wants to get out without having to be accountable. And
Yeah,
so she gets there.
back to what Whitney was saying, that she's not actually
Yeah,
experiencing any remorse. Like,
Mhm.
she's like a bat out of hell walking through that reception. Michael sees her and then he gets up to follow her and she's like, what's going on? And so he's like, well, I didn't know what to do. Like she didn't cancel it. Like I wanted to face people and not run away, but could you go check on her? And then you see like, oh, he cares about her.
Yeah.
Jules goes and finds Kimmy. She's the young men are sucking down helium and making
that
voices.
another scene where the movie had time for itself. That was a long played out joke.
Yeah,
You
this
know,
is one of my favorite. This is one of my favorite scenes, and
it's so funny.
yeah. But so she goes and talks to Kimmy, and she's like checking in, and she's kind of misrepresenting what Michael's got going on. Ultimately, here, like Kimmy, like says she still loves him and she still wants to get married to him, but Julia is like trying so hard to guide her away from that, and she starts using food analogies, and she says that you're creme brulee, and
Yeah.
Michael he wants Jello. And she goes, I could be Jello, and Jules
Yeah.
says, "You're never gonna be Jello."
And then she's like, I have to be Jello. This is where I feel like during this point in the movie with the guys singing and like I it reminded me that like it's not meant to, you don't need to take this too seriously, this movie or any of the stuff that's happening, because they have this constant stream of comedy in the background. You know what I mean? Like it's I don't know, like they're having their important conversation while these guys are singing a helium, like it's not meant to be taken so seriously.
Hmm.
Like it's silly. Did you notice that one of those that his younger brother, he's Danny Masterson's brother.
Little brother, yeah. I don't know his first name.
Yeah, and he's Francis in the show
Malcolm in the Middle,
Malcolm in
right?
the Middle. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I didn't watch that show, but yeah, that's what I know him from as well.
Yeah.
That was
Anyway.
probably right around this time, was it not?
Maybe like a couple years later. He looks a little younger here, but yeah,
Yeah.
probably just only a few. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anywho, so she goes back over, now she's like the message courier. So now she goes back to Michael and
Oh
um
wait, yeah, this is the scene where she tells him all, right? And she has like a very
Mm-mm.
breathy speech. Oh, okay.
Is no, does is it now? She doesn't fix it first and
And this
then
is where
well, so
Cameron Diaz.
she does so Cameron Diaz says, you're never going to be Jello, that whole thing. Then she goes back to Michael and he's like, well, how is she? And she's like, well, she takes complete responsibility for all of it, which is again a lie because that's not really true. That's she's not taking responsibility for the letter. She's taking responsibility for,
Mhm.
having needs as a human. But
I know, and then he's like, "Oh, it works for me. If
yeah,
she's responsible, I'm back on board."
yeah, but then she tells him, like, you know, that she loves him. Like she comes out with it finally, and they're in that gazebo, and then she like thrusts a kiss upon him. But again, that should have happened on the ferry. Now it's too late.
And
And
it's so breathy, her little speech to him. Did you notice? Like, I was like, she's gonna pass out right now. Like she was. You didn't notice how breathy it was?
no,
Oh, that stood out to me so much. I was like, okay, like she did more breathing than talking.
oh my God, you're always catching the noises that come
Yeah.
alongside the.
Yeah, it drives me nuts.
I
Okay,
know.
but anyway, yeah. So she plants a big one on him. Kimmy sees it. Kimmy's
Yep.
already heartbroken, but like, so she like runs away all upset
Mhm.
and angry, and then they have that silly chasing scene, which is it's funny.
But it's important because of what George says later. So Kimmy's running away, Michael's chasing her, and Jules is chasing Michael, and and
Nobody's chasing Jules.
Yes, they each get into their cars. One thing that's funny here is like the mother is watching them. Everybody thinks it's cute. The
uh,
mother explains to the old women, like, "Oh, they're like, look at them running." And then they see Jules come in, and then she goes, "That's our bride or our maid of honor. She's from New York." And they're all like, "Ah."
And as they're running, it's funny too because he's like Kimmy and then like she's like Michael, right? And
yeah,
doesn't it go back and forth like Michael,
yeah.
Kim, Michael.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
and Michael steals a car, and then Kimmy
Well, I
steals.
think he takes his
Not
own
Kimmy.
car.
Oh,
Kimmy
does
takes her
he?
own car. He takes her own car. It's
Jules steals
Jules
a
that doesn't
car.
have a car.
Jules
So
Yeah.
she
steals a
steals a bread
bread
truck.
truck.
Yes.
Yeah. I know. And in that moment, I thought to myself, like, oh my God, like if she stole my coffee delivery truck, I would fucking kill her.
Yeah,
Yeah, she like
yeah.
turns it into Grand Theft Auto, but
Yeah, she does.
really up in the ante. But yeah, so she calls George. He's in a library at a book reading or a bookstore. Again, the volume on his cell phone is like jacked up. She's yelling from this car chase. He like excuses himself into like the stacks of the bookstore he's in. But everybody in this store can hear what's going on, and she's saying what's going on, and he says, so Michael's chasing Kimmy, you're chasing Michael, who's chasing you?
Right.
Like, let it go. And again, just like the voice of reason, she follows Michael to the train station. Kimmy's nowhere to be found, and now she has her grand confession, and she says, in addition to loving you, I have something worse to say. And she says everything.
Mhm. What
And
I
he's
was
like
gonna
fine with it.
say, what I was gonna say as I lean forward, when she got to the train station, she thought he was getting on a train, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. He was looking for Kimmy. So I thought that was nice to hear right
Yeah.
away. And then she knew that, and then she started talking anyway. Yeah, go ahead with the confession.
Yeah, so she confesses all the things, and he sits there with the usual look on his face, and And then he says that, she calls herself pond scum, and then he says lower than pond scum, and then he has like a very long descriptor of how scummy she really is. But then he also says, and this is where I'm just like, what a sign of the times too. Like,
Yeah.
thank you though for loving me that much. It's really
Yeah.
flattering. I'm like,
Oh,
Thank you for all
okay.
this toxic love you've been spreading
Yeah.
around. You've
Like,
really been
seriously.
damaging my relationships and
Yeah.
my mental stability and my
and my career.
fiance's mental stability and my career
Yeah.
and my relationship with my new family. Thank you. It's
Yeah.
so flattering.
But thank you for
Yes.
loving me this much. Like, holy shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, chaos is not love. Oh
That could
man.
be a on the rom-com me not t-shirt. Chaos
Yeah,
is not
maybe
love.
Yes.
that would be a great shirt. I would love that shirt. Chaos is not love. I would wear that. Just a
It
Yeah.
it
simple,
should be like tie-dye too.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Chaos is not love. I like that.
Yeah. All right. But yeah, so then, they're like, cool, there's no problems here. And now Jules is on board to go find Kimmy, which again, I would just be like, leave,
Yeah, how
but
about you just fucking exit stage left, girl? Like I'll take the yeah, like she's like, okay, now I'm a part of this thing in your
Right.
life. Like yeah,
Now
she
I'm
just
gonna save everything.
yeah, yeah,
yes.
Look
like
at
yeah.
me. I'm gonna do the right thing. Give me
Yeah.
credit.
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yep. So they go on their search. She calls back to the house. One of the cousins mentions that they got a crank call that Kimmy may or may not be at the baseball game. She goes, she's searching in the bathroom, and Kimmy says, yells out to leave her alone. She goes and knocks on the door, and like Cameron Diaz, her face is so good when she busts open that bathroom stall. She is
Huh?
pissed.
Yeah.
And yeah, she like walks over.
Appropriately so. Kimmy
Yes.
is the only person, Kimmy and George are the only people treating Jules the way she ought to be treated through all
Mm-hmm.
of this. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Cameron Diaz, like I wrote her name down with a heart next to it after this scene because I just love her so fucking much in this scene. She
Mm-hmm.
stands up for herself. She's yelling at her. She flicks her hair.
Some big-haired food critic. Yeah.
Yeah, two-faced, big-haired, and flicks. I loved that. I was just like, Cameron fucking Diaz. Like, God, like she just bravo, bravo. Like, she's
Well, and I
so
love
good.
how the other women in the bathroom, they're like cat fight, and they all come and watch, and they're all reacting, and they're calling
Mm-hmm.
her a bitch and stuff. Like
It's a great scene. I love a scene like this where two characters from a movie are things come to a head and then there's this circumstantial just like in Wedding Singer where all the people on the plane
The
got
airplane,
involved.
yeah.
Yeah, like I love this little bit. It's so funny.
Yes.
yeah, yeah. And they're yeah, and they do this earlier in the movie with the karaoke too, where you have the background people and they're
They're
like,
getting involved.
well, and they're kind of guiding you on how you should be feeling.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like they take you from cringe to joy with the karaoke. On this one, they're like, it's from being like rip shit about Jules to like, they come together and like Jules says like you won and I'm sorry or whatever. Again, maybe she doesn't overtly apologize, but and everything's fine. And
Yeah, she does not
everybody in
say
the
I'm
back, I think they
sorry.
clap. I think the bathroom people all clap when they like hug or something. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's yeah. And then we're at the wedding and everything's fine. And Jules walks down the aisle and she and Michael exchange a glance and Kimmy has her lip kiss with her dad and
That really bothered you, huh? Really noticeable?
Yeah, I noticed it too. I was like, ew.
so um they have the wedding scene and then we're at the reception and the brother is making the speech where he just keeps saying the word happiness and that's kind of cute. And then Jenna didn't like this. I'll let you talk about it, Jenna. But Jules gets up to give her speech, and she like,
Right on, Jenna. And you shouldn't have
Yeah,
liked
she's
it.
just making it about herself this whole fucking time.
yeah. And then she says, "I didn't give you a gift, but you can have this on loan." And it's like her and Michael's song.
I hated that because I found that to be more, I was like, what? They don't need to be having like the song between that he just sang to her while they danced a couple scenes ago. Like, it's like she won't quit. She just won't quit.
Honestly, I interpreted his face I didn't think that he was like, oh, that's so kind. I took his face when that started playing to mean the audacity you have. It's how I
Yeah.
took it, but maybe I'm just projecting my own feelings.
No, I that's how it looked to me
I
too.
didn't think it was as kind as she thought it was.
Yeah, I also read that on his
It was
face.
still about her relationship with him.
Yes. Yeah, still,
Yeah.
and she has to be exchanging glances with him on the altar and you know what I mean? Like it's just all about her the entire time, even at the end here. It's just all about her. All the way up until the last scene. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, so they have their dance, and then immediately they're in their more casual attire, having rice thrown at them, about to leave. And you know, up until the very end here, Jules is like feeling desperate for Michael. You know, even though she's like let him go, kind of like she still like wants to say goodbye again, and he disappears, and then she looks disappointed. Then all of a sudden, he emerges out of the crowd and gives her a hug and says goodbye, and she feels good about that. But then goes and sits down in her purple dress and gets a phone call at the reception from George, and he starts asking how she's doing and, narrating some different things. And you kind of realize that, he's being really specific about how he's narrating her activities. And
Mm-hmm.
she gets up and she starts searching for him. And there he is sitting at a table, looking all suave, and gets up and dances with her. And he's just like such a nice guy.
Yeah.
Real hero of the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Agree.
he's there to pick up all the pieces, that's for sure. Like
Yep.
he has a very needy friend.
Mm-hmm.
And then the movie fades out with the song about time to let you go is how it opens. So, and that's my best friend's wedding.
It was like a fun ending scene, like it's
Yeah.
being annoyed with her separate, it's fun.
Yeah.
Did you know that it was going to be a different ending? That
Really?
instead of George coming back, she was going to meet Michael's best friend from college or something, and it was going to be, shoot, I forget what his name is, but a really famous, good-looking guy, and you were to assume that she met him and they fell in love. And
Hmm.
they didn't want to end the movie in a way that, and she honestly didn't deserve it at this point, but they
Yeah.
didn't want to end the movie in a way that said she could only be happy if she found love.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
happy that they
So,
did that.
yeah,
yeah,
I mean, I can definitely appreciate that. Like, that she didn't
yeah,
get it tied up in a bow, she had to just kind of sit with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I love
Well,
the soundtrack to this movie. I had the CD of it. I yeah, I love all the music in it. It's so good. I think it's
Mm-hmm.
just like so well curated.
Yeah.
yeah, it's well done. Good
All right,
movie.
Rom de com.
Ooh, I was thinking about that while I watched it. I'm going to go 50-50.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna land there as well.
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of longing, like we said. They had a few scenes where they built that up like pretty hard and then also like Cameron Diaz, like Kimmy, she really does love this guy. Like she made that clear. Like
Mm-hmm.
he obviously really loves her too, I think is what, you know, ultimately happens. And yeah, it was really funny. I do think it was funny. I felt like there was a lot of good jokes. They put a lot of effort into their jokes. They had the patience to let them play out in these like long form ways, which that's my favorite thing about this
Mm-hmm.
movie for sure. I just like miss that. I miss that pace. Like even though the movie is fast, like the plot moves along quickly, I miss that pace of like those jokes. Like I miss like having enough time to see a joke all the way through and not needing everything to be so fast. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah. Favorite quote?
mine was, I don't think we said it, but when Cameron Diaz was at either was it at the wedding or something she where she ended up seeing them kissing in the gazebo, whatever event that was.
Mm-hmm.
When they switched the scene over to Cameron Diaz and she's standing there sobbing, looking at the flowers, saying, "These are the most beautiful flowers I've ever seen."
Yeah. Yeah.
That's my favorite quote. It would have to be either that or her saying, "Two-faced, big-haired, like
Yeah.
yeah, food
Food
critic or
critic.
whatever." Yeah, like But yeah, that I thought that I wrote that one down as my favorite quote because I just thought that Cameron Diaz just delivered it so well.
Okay. So and I had to pull it up, but it's the phone call where Jules calls the house to see if anybody has seen Kimmy, and the cousin picks up, and I pulled it up, and the cousin says, "You guys ran out of here before the commotion happened." And Jules goes, "Commotion?" And the cousin says, "Well, my sister was licking an ice sculpture and her tongue froze right to it."
Oh yeah.
And Jules says, "And that's a commotion?" And the cousin said, "It's a sculpture of David. She had licked its penis."
You can barely get through even just saying that out loud.
It just lived up to its name, and then they showed him trying to blow dry her tongue off of the
Oh
penis.
my God. Just another great example of like a joke going on in the background, like
Yes.
they kept the comedy going in this one.
Yeah.
What was your
Mine,
favorite?
mine's the "You're never gonna beat Jello" exchange.
Oh
Mhm.
my God, that whole exchange.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Awesome.
Well,
Dateability, I will date neither.
yeah.
The only character in this movie I would date would be George.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yep.
true. Yeah, I would that same. I totally agree, George. Like I wouldn't date any of these other characters. Like, but I would love to be friends with Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah,
because
I'd
I
like
love
to
her.
meet Kimmy when she's a little older.
When
Yep.
she's a little older, yeah, when she's not
Yeah.
like 20. I thought it was crazy that they were supposed to like when Jules like mentioned being like 28. I was like 28. These guys look way older than that. Like
I think people used to look older.
I think
Yes.
so
But
too.
but same. I think I always think Julia Roberts is like 40
Yeah.
and will
Yeah, I
forever be
wasn't
40 in my head.
I wasn't buying
Yeah.
28. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
But
people were smoking though. That ages you.
that does. And most people did smoke back then. I feel like a lot of people smoked.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Cameron Diaz also looks older than 20 because she is older than 20 in this.
Mhm.
How
She
old
looks
is
older than like
Let's
sh
see.
yeah, see how old she was in this?
Yeah.
She was 25.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, that's not bad.
No.
She looked young though. I mean,
Well,
she looked
Yeah.
how old was Julia Roberts in this?
30.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
she was about the age she said she was. That's funny.
Yeah.
Huh. Well,
Okay. Anything? Do we do anything else?
No.
no, I think that's it. I think that we hit all our stuff.
Okay. Now that we've watched all of these, so which rom-com is on top so far out of the ones we've watched? I think
Oh,
I
go
think
ahead.
it's still The Wedding Singer for me.
Me too.
In comparison of this chunk of movies that we've watched, it's The Wedding Singer.
Yep. I'm right there with you.
Hmm.
I'm still on Sweet Home Alabama.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
that
was
was a good one.
wondering. Nice.
I mean, for me, I think Sweet Home Alabama is a close second. Like I mean, The Wedding Singer's firmly on top for me, but I do continue to enjoy thinking about Sweet Home Alabama. My thoughts are positive about
Oh,
it.
see, I think my best friend's wedding is right there behind
Oh,
The Wedding Singer for me. I feel like The Wedding Singer is a good place to start for movies. Like that's what people should watch before
yeah.
they make their movie. Like what is that?
Yeah.
What is that called? Like that using that foundation
Hmm.
or structure. It just works so well.
Yeah.
Right. Like if
I
you're
don't
gonna
know.
make a rom-com, like make sure you watch that. Like,
Hmm.
yeah. Yeah. It was perfect. I thought The Wedding Singer was just perfect.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah, for me this was close behind. And again, it's because of the side characters. They make
Yeah.
this movie go so quick.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Wow.